We're just about a minute till 7 o'clock. I've got this on record, and I will I'll be able to forward this to Randy, and he will be able to share it with any other member who is interested in listening to this. Okay, I got it. Sean from Green Township also. Thank you, Sean. So we'll wait. I don't want to start. I don't want to start talking without letting everybody in here first. Yeah, I'm just there's two different types of Zoom. There's Zoom webinar and Zoom meeting. And what I'm doing with you guys with Zoom webinar that required the registration and stuff like that, it's just a little bit different than the Zoom meeting. I've been doing hundreds of Zoom meetings across Pennsylvania, and it's just there. Just excuse me if there's some glitches that we kind of miss here. So, but again, like I said, you're permitted to stop and talk if you have a question, and I'm going to have some questions.
Unmuted. That's you.
Why is that? Good. You can't be close to.
Yeah, there's two phones that are up or something like that. And all right. Very good. And what kind of screen can you guys see? You guys see my full screen, or you guys should?
We see your slide 1 before we saw your up next slide 2.
Okay, good. So we're on slide 1. Great to hear it. All right. Let me take a quick look here to see if there's anyone waiting to get on here. All right, Zach was the last one. All right, I'm going to close that up for now. Hopefully we'll be able to make sure that everyone gets a chance to ask any questions. So welcome, and those of you that know me, I like to stay on time, but I want your this to be as valuable for you as it is for me to present this. Just want to excuse myself. I've got 2 dogs sitting behind me, and my wife is out to dinner with a close friend. So hopefully they're not going to get up and start barking as my wind blows through my front yard here. But these things, you as emergency services providers and municipal government officials, there's some significant things that are going to go on in Pennsylvania, which are happening right now. And you have to ask yourself a couple of questions, okay? And you guys from EMS, just as you see as fire company here, I want you to say as EMS, or think of EMS, what is the greatest concern for the future regarding your organization, okay? As looking at it from a fire or EMS leader, because you're leaders in the 3 Shippensburg fire departments and the EMS, or from a municipal official, okay? From a township official, a borough council person, a municipal manager, or something like that. What is your greatest concern for the future? Okay, I want you to think about that, okay? And I want you to maybe write that down, okay? Write that down, because if I was standing down in Shippensburg right now, I would, in front of you, and there's all 20 some of you in the room, I would have a card in front of me. Okay, and I use cards to get people to talk. Okay, and we'll have some, we'll have a chance to communicate with each other. But it's my intent, okay, my intent for you to use this presentation to continue the good things that you're doing in Shippensburg, to look at, expanding or changing or doing something that will improve and sustain emergency services, okay? But before you get to do that and think about that, you have to think about the greatest concern. I'm going to paint a picture for you of what's going on across Pennsylvania, okay? And some of the challenges that organizations are facing. And I will, again, this is slighted a little bit toward the volunteer end, but I will, talk about EMS on this. Again, you are all able to participate or send me a, to say, hey, or something like that, and I'll hear you. But again, identifying the greatest concern that you have as a leader in one of the Shippensburg fire departments, or as a municipality that provides funding, and as a municipality who has the authority through the second-class township code, the borough code, to ensure that emergency services is provided, okay? That's the question number one that you need to think about, okay? And write that down or think about that. Question number two is, what are you gonna do to solve that issue, okay? Because across Pennsylvania, I have people complaining constantly, given the doom and gloom scenario, and yet they are doing nothing to improve themselves, okay? They are doing nothing to work better with their municipality or each other. And I'm challenging all of you, okay? What are you going to do to solve your concern, okay? If you have low staffing during daylight operations in a volunteer fire system, okay, that's a common thing that I hear. And if you're doing nothing to solve it, okay, there's just so many times a municipal official is going to hear the word, we don't have anybody around daylight. We don't have anybody around daylight, okay? Well, unless you have a comprehensive recruitment and retention program, and you've run that through the whole series of things in recruitment and retention, and the next step for you is paid staffing, okay, then don't cry about it. You have to be able to proactively address each and every one of your concerns, So this is a little bit about me, okay? I am, again, I've been living in Pennsylvania all my life. I have grew up in Western Pennsylvania outside of the city of Johnstown. I worked in rural McKean County for many years, and I've been in central Pennsylvania here 18 years in a variety of different positions. So I'm very proud of the work that I do now with the Pennsylvania Fire and Emergency Services Institute. I work with members of the General Assembly and their staff. I work with all the other statewide associations, Pennsylvania Association of Township Supervisors, and a bunch of other ones. And believe me, Pennsylvania's got many challenges, and there's some good things that are happening across Pennsylvania. There's a lot of good things that are happening. Getting together and talking is one of the most important things, and this is why we are here tonight, okay? Because you guys are critical to the public safety in the Shippensburg regional area, okay? Both volunteer, career fire, and EMS are critical to the public safety, and you know that, okay? I know that because, I hear calls going out, okay? I hear calls going out. You look at your service area, your target hazards, what you have in your area, okay? What is your situation, okay? If the citizens did not have you, okay? Who and what would they have? Okay. Now, the majority of organizations in Pennsylvania, fire service organizations, are membership-driven community nonprofits or membership-driven nonprofits. Okay. There has been changing demographics in Pennsylvania, which should scare you, and I will tell you why the challenges that are facing Pennsylvania's changing demographics, and it's not good for the volunteer fire and EMS service. Okay. However, there are greater expectations for our service. And those of you that are chief officers or company officers in members of the 3 Shippensburg fire departments, you know that people are going to be calling you for beeping batteries, flooded basements, trees down at all hours of the day. We are an all hazard emergency service organization. It is not just fires, and it has not been just fires. You know, there's been greater accountability from local government officials on the money that you use. Okay. If a local government is going to fund an emergency services organization, which some, and I will show you a graph, you know, there's organizations where 95% of their budget is funded by the local government. Okay. And yet they have conflicts when that. So when there's more funding from municipalities, the fire service and EMS should expect greater accountability from local government. I'm not going to say that's good or bad or anything like that. It's based on a relationship. So legal issues. Okay, again, I worked in risk management for 4 years. I worked for a national level insurance company, and I learned a ton of stuff. I traveled all over the United States. My last 2 years were in Pennsylvania and New England. But I can tell you that small little fire departments can get themselves into trouble the same way as large metro department when it comes to discrimination, harassment, and things like that. So there's many legal issues out there, an increased number of scandals that are happening. And that's why we're here, okay? So when you look at Pennsylvania, and I know that maybe one or two of you have seen my presentation before, because those of you that have been to some of the chiefs meetings, if you look at Pennsylvania and the demographic shifts that we are seeing. So here's our challenge. When we see a decrease in over 5% from 2010 to 2019, that's that brownish. So you look at those municipalities, and this is a municipal map, okay? When I go back home to where I grew up, or I go up to the northern tier where I'll be in a couple of weeks, okay, near Coudersport, the population is dramatically decreasing and it's getting older, okay? You look at the blue areas in Pennsylvania, okay? You look at the blue areas, and what that is an increase in population of greater than 5%. Matter of fact, one of the 5 fastest growing municipalities in Pennsylvania last year was Silver Spring Township, and you will see that it is dark blue on the Cumberland County map right there, okay? So then you'll see Lancaster County, you see up in the Lehigh Valley, you see State College, you see the Western Allegheny, Northern Washington County area, the Southern Butler County area. So what we're seeing in the blue areas is we are seeing the fire service transitioning to more combination fire departments. Not every municipality, okay, not every municipality. And then in the dark brown areas, I'm seeing the fire service. You walk in the station and there's many older persons in the fire station. There's not a lot of youth in the fire stations there. Matter of fact, in one fire station in Western Pennsylvania I went into, it's a small borough. They have 2 different departments in the borough. I talked to the chief. The chief said, hey, we could get an engine and a ladder truck out every day, okay, during the day, because we have retired guys. I go, oh, that's kind of cool. He said, well, Jerry, here's the problem. Both retired guys, 2 on each apparatus, are over 70 years old, and they're not AirPack qualified anymore. So they have to wait for the township department to come in before they initiate any interior fire operations, okay? What we're also seeing in the blue areas, and you guys are accustomed to this in the Shippensburg area, many of the people that live in those blue areas in the Southern York and Adams and stuff, they work in Maryland and Virginia, okay? I've got neighbors here where I live in Hampton Township. Now they're all working from home now, but they used to work in Baltimore and Washington, D.C., okay? Those type, they're too busy to even volunteer anymore, okay? So understanding our changes in shifting demographics, okay? And you in the Shippensburg area, understanding who is available to either recruit, who is going to donate, or how is your system going to survive in the future, okay? And that's what the whole concept that I want you to be interested in. So here's the type of fire companies, and obviously in EMS, I've talked to the state EMS director, and it's about 1/3 in Pennsylvania are all volunteer. 1/3 EMS is a combination, and 1/3 is all paid in Pennsylvania for the types of EMS departments. And there's right around 800 now. In Pennsylvania, there are 2,400 fire departments. That was one of the things that the fire commissioner told us on Tuesday night, that 2,400 agencies applied for the state fire grant program. So this will tell you that, the blue or the green is all volunteer. Combination is the brownish, and all fully paid is the purple. Now, I want you to be aware that the white on that map, that doesn't mean there is not a fire. What that means is there's not a station there. It doesn't mean they're covered. So understanding that. So the other thing that we need to always look at is how are services funded? Okay, how are services funded? And this comes from information from when municipalities report to the DCED on what they spend on fire service. Okay, some of the challenges that I do see is when I'm working with people in municipalities and other places, people see that statewide average and it kind of skews things. Okay, and understanding, and there's complexities when it comes with funding emergency services, and I'll tell you a little bit about that later. Okay, so in Pennsylvania, this is what it looks like. These numbers, and when I told you about the 2,400, these numbers are off because can you believe that the DCED has different numbers than the Office of the State Fire Commissioner? At these state agencies, we don't have a clear, because if you guys know from EMS, we license EMS services. So EMS office knows exactly how many ambulance services or QRSs are licensed in Pennsylvania, okay? How many EMTs, how many emergency responders, how many paramedics, they know exactly. In Pennsylvania Fire Service, the different state agencies that help us, we don't have a clear number on that. But I can tell you one thing, the fastest growing department in Pennsylvania is the combination fire department right there. So the other one that I wanted you guys to, I brought this statistic up because this is exactly Shippensburg right here, and compared to what I'm used to, and I want to talk about the complexity of this, So I'm familiar with Shippensburg. For the 18 years that I've lived here, you have multiple municipalities that make up your service area, your primary service area, okay? And you have multiple fire service organizations that also service that, okay? So you look at this, 39% of the fire departments who responded to one of my surveys, okay, it was the Center for Local Government Services, they covered one municipality, okay? 24% covered 2 municipalities, 25% covered 3 or 4 municipalities, first due, and 12% covered more than 5 municipalities. Now, the reason why this is important, this is complexity, okay, because this is complex because I've worked with areas that not everybody contributes the same. You've got the borough that gives this amount of money. The township does this. There's a township that doesn't do anything. This fire department is not coordinated with this fire department. This fire department asks the municipality for funding an engine, then 2 months later, the other fire department comes in and asks for this, and the municipal leaders don't know what to do. So that is the nature of Pennsylvania. Okay, and there's some new organizational structures that have been coming out that kind of deal with this a little bit, but you guys definitely fall into that 25% of 3 or 4 municipalities. And like I said, it's all about the complexity. Where I am right now in Hampton Township, 1 fire department, 1 municipality. The complexity, there is some complexity, but not that much. Okay, when you deal with 3 different boards of directors, 3 different supervisor organizations, borough council, and things like that. And that makes your job much harder. Every single one of you that are on this call, much harder. So this is your system, okay? And you let me know if somebody else is part of that system, okay? And your system is complex. And that's, you add up your calls. I'm not sure what, 500 or 600 fire calls, probably 2,400, 3,000 ambulance calls, lots of stuff going on. Okay. It's a critical area. Okay. Critical area. So if I was meeting with, which I am going to be doing a seminar exactly like this, about an hour and a half north of Harrisburg. It is a township with 2,500 people with 1 fire department. Okay. Their complexity is a lot different than your complexity. Okay. And I'm going to say you have some complexity here. Okay. So why is that complexity important is because there's some tension in the relationships. There's some built-in tension in the relationships between municipalities and emergency services organizations. And again, this is a generality. I'm not saying that this is happening in your organization, which I don't think it is. But we have that tension where we have separate local governments, boroughs and townships, which are very typical. We've got fire service organizations and EMS. This is the way we've always done it. We don't want to, we're not going to change. We have borough and township officials saying, oh boy, this is going to cost us more money. Oh my gosh, this is going to cost us more money. We have a lot, we're concerned about municipal funding. We have a police department to fund. We have all this other thing. Then there's organizations that say, we're not sure if we're having an issue. We don't know. We think we have an issue. And then we have situations that, again, you are independent 501c3 membership driven organizations. So when you make a decision, when a fire company has to make a decision, it takes time. And when I work with municipal officials, I have to sometimes teach them that it might take 6 months for a fire company to make a decision based on their committee structure, based on multiple fire company meetings and things like that. It doesn't happen as quick in other type of organizations. There's some concern, that, fire companies just say, give us more money, just don't get in our business, just give us more money. And in today's world of accountability, that doesn't work. And then I have municipal officials that, they want to increase the accountability of volunteer fire companies and EMS and set up some rules and regulations. And then there's others that are very concerned that all the volunteers will walk away and there's nobody's going to serve our community. So it's a nasty cycle and it goes around in different circles and things like that. So, there's that tension to begin with. Okay. If I would go out, like I said, I did some work in Colorado. I did some work in Wyoming at Washington State when I was with VFIS. Those systems are set up completely different. They are a part of local government. They are a part of government. In Pennsylvania, traditionally, unless you were a third-class city or something like that, you are not part of local government. And as the funding crisis continues, more and more are getting closer and closer to local government. So, I know some of you attended my lecture when I talk about Mrs. Smith, and I didn't really, some of you don't know about Mrs. Smith, but she's a lady that lives in your area. She might have grandchildren or children. She may rent property or own property. But when she calls EMS and fire, she's having the worst day of her life. Okay. She doesn't care who the fire chief is, what color the engine is. She does not care if you've got the brand new Pierce ladder or a 22-year-old broken down ladder. They don't care. Okay. In the work that I've done across Pennsylvania, in the studies that I've read, in talking to fire service and EMS experts around Pennsylvania and else, your Mrs. Smith wants 3 things. Okay, Mrs. Smith wants 3 things. And this is Mrs. Smith in your Shippensburg community. Okay, she wants help fast. Okay, she wants you to get there and solve that problem. She wants you to know what you're doing when you get there. Okay, I know there's fire departments in Pennsylvania that don't do any training whatsoever. Okay. And you could see when they don't do training. But when you get there, she wants you to be nice and make the problem go away. Okay. So how does that translate into modern operations in what you want to do in Shippensburg? Okay. Your citizens, your community. Okay. The students that go to Shippensburg University, the municipal officials who get elected and raise taxes, and the constituents, what do they want? Having a clear expectation about what they want is one of your key things, okay? Because if it's taking you 22 minutes to get the first engine on scene and it's a mile out of town, is that acceptable or not? Is it acceptable in Shippensburg to take the first, it takes the first ambulance 32 minutes to get there, okay? Now I know if you live in a rural area, maybe that's someone's expectation. But if in downtown Shippensburg, does it take a while for that first unit to get there? And when that unit gets there, is that crew properly trained to know what's going on and making the problem go away? So how is that translated into relationships and knowing what's going on is this. What is your response time? Okay, how do you define you're doing good in Shippensburg? And only you'll see that defined by the authority having jurisdiction. And the authority having jurisdiction in Pennsylvania is usually a municipality, but most of the time they delegate that to the fire service, okay, or EMS. And basically, what is good, okay? And there's ways to measure that and figure that out, but only you could figure that out, okay? And how I say this, in Harrisburg City, there's 17 firefighters on duty 24/7, okay? 17 firefighters, like there's 16 firefighters and a battalion chief. They could be on scene in the city of Harrisburg between 3 minutes and about 8 minutes anywhere in the city. 3 to 5, it's 3 to 6, I think. That's what he told me. 3 to 6 in the city of Harrisburg. They could have that effective response force on the scene. Okay, and that's the expectation. But to have that expectation is $8.5 million in personnel costs every year. Okay, that's just personnel costs, $8.5 million. Okay, so defining what you want for a response time, training fire and EMS. Mrs. Smith wants trained fire and EMS personnel. Mrs. Smith wants what I call a values and HR system to ensure empathy. And that's what I mean by you want people to be nice and make the problem go away. Fire departments are in a place right now where they are so bad, volunteer departments, that they're taking anybody that walks in the door. And sometimes those aren't the right people for our organization. And you have to protect your organization to have an HR system to make sure you get the right people in. And to be honest with you guys, here's the last one. And this last bullet point, second to last bullet point. So I've been doing this presentation down in Chester County. And it was for a bunch of municipal officials, and it was fire departments. And there's this one township supervisor raises his hand and kind of shuts me down right away. And he goes, "Jerry, you forgot one important thing." And this was a pretty smart township official that kind of knew what was going on. Is you got one that you're missing, and it's called citizens want it cost effective. And I talked to him a little more, and what that came down to personally, and when I talked to him is, if that municipality is putting money into the system, they don't want equipment and services duplicated and something that's not cost effective. So that was very interesting that my friend from Newland Township told me about that. So I remember that. So here is the first problem and the starting point for many issues in Pennsylvania, okay? So if there are unclear expectations, you want to let that sink in, okay? You want to let that sink in. If you as fire service leaders from your fire departments and the staff from Shippensburg EMS, you need to clearly define what are your expectations from the local governments, okay? And the local governments, you need to clearly define what your expectation is from the fire department. Okay, and the next part is about defining some of the concerns and the issues facing that. And one of the ones that I have recently become involved with is the issue of transparency. The local government had a major concern about the fire company and being transparent about their internal operations, okay, and the financial aspect of their internal operations. But the local government never listed on a piece of paper that they wanted a monthly report of this, that, and the other thing. So there was unclear expectations. And usually these unclear expectations kind of blow up and create conflict. So what I've got now is I'm going to provide you with the 3 greatest issues facing Pennsylvania service. Now, wait a second, I'm a little bit ahead of that. So what happens is when these expectations start to blow up, the communication breaks down, okay? The communication breaks down. And how do you communicate with your local elected officials? Okay. Now, do you all go through Randy, the Shippensburg fire chief, or do you speak directly with the township supervisor? So a lot of communication is based on tradition, okay? And it's based on relationships. It's not based on a process. It's usually people-centric. You know, in Pennsylvania, it's usually we got one guy in the fire department that knows somebody up on borough council. When we need some extra money, we'll have our one guy from the fire department go up and meet with the one guy from borough council, and we'll get a bump up on our budget, okay? When there's this unclear communication process or system, it starts to devolve when there's a problem into rumors. For example, oh, we've heard the township's going to cut our budget, okay, and we've heard this rumor that they're going to replace us with another fire department. And what happens then is rumors start to spin out of control, and then you have firefighters or municipal officials or EMS posting on Facebook negative comments about this blankety blank borough council person and stuff like that. And the modern methods of complaining cause us to break down the relationship even worse. Okay. So having control over this communication process is really important. Okay. And what I mean by that is having a process, and I'll talk about that very shortly, is how do you communicate? Do you have quarterly meetings? Okay, anything to deal with the municipality, it's going to go through this committee of 4 chiefs. How do we do that? Okay, and that is one of the things that really creates issues in Pennsylvania. So how are local governments governed? And it's important. I always like to let people know this. And the borough code is very similar to the township code, where the local government is responsible for providing emergency services. Okay, they don't have to own emergency services. Okay, they don't have to hire people and do that if they don't want to, and they may fund emergency services at the level that they deem necessary. Okay, in some places there's municipalities that give fire departments $800,000 a year, and they're happy with that. And there's some places where they give fire departments $5,000 a year. It's what they feel and deem necessary. Okay. In the law, in the township code, is that they must meet on a regular basis or have an annual meeting with your local fire department. Okay. They have broad rules, and they may set rules and regulations for the operation of fire departments. Okay. Now, what I mean by that is the operational aspects. When you have a separate nonprofit corporation, a township cannot, another story, the township cannot go in and remove officers or anything like that, but they can certainly set up rules and regulations for people that are authorized to respond in a municipality and things like that, and all kind of things. And I see it all over Pennsylvania in certain areas. And if you receive funding from the municipality, you must report on that funding, what you use that funding for. And again, that sets it up. The fire companies usually operate on a 501c3 nonprofit corporation. Okay. And then there's the government side of that. And how that is integrated is very important. And the word transparency is extremely important, and I will repeat that later on in the presentation. If you are not transparent, it does create a concern. And again, here is what you follow in fire and EMS. You're a 501c3 nonprofit corporation. You may be a board of directors driven nonprofit or a membership driven nonprofit. And when a membership driven nonprofit, what I mean by that is the members join. The members elect their leaders, president, vice president, secretary, treasurer, chief, and things. And then usually all of the decisions go back to the membership when there's something to do with the department. The corporation, the 501c3 corporation, it's a board of directors that may have community members on it. Okay, that the governance of that is a little bit differently. And those organizations follow Pennsylvania and federal nonprofit laws. And again, and then again, we have relief associations, which is one of my big projects at work to try to make that whole system easier in Pennsylvania. We're trying to get some legislative support to move that. Because believe it or not, there's some relief associations in Pennsylvania that operate their own bureaucracy and don't necessarily get along well with the fire chief. So that's very interesting when you see that. So here's our three big problems, and this is what's building, and this piece is going to build on where you need to kind of go and ensure that you're addressing these in different factors, okay? And this is going to be nothing secret to you, that your traditional methods of funding are decreasing. And this was even before the pandemic. If people would track, unless you're out fundraising on a regular basis, our traditional methods of funding, and you guys from EMS know that the reimbursement from insurance companies is not what it used to be. The cost of operating is not what it used to be 30 years ago. Okay, you all know what it's like to purchase a ladder truck, purchase an engine, you're paying on your building. You know this situation, and this is where it looks like this is you may have all of these or you may not have all of these. So here's the funding model, and if one of those legs is weak, your organization is going to be kind of struggling. Okay. And, you know, for example, a fund drive is when you send out letters, okay, when you send out letters and people donate funds to you. It's that fund drive. Fundraising, okay, fundraising is if you do hall rentals, the food, the fairs, the street fairs, bingo games, and stuff like that. Small games of chance. That's fundraising. And I could tell you in Pennsylvania, there's organizations that their fundraising operation is more important than the fire service end of the operation. And that's the way it is. And then we have government funding. And what we mean by government funding is municipal support. Your relief fund is a government funding. It's a tax, okay? So it comes from the government. Your state fire commissioner grants, if you get a FEMA grant or anything like that, that's called the government end. And then auxiliary business operations. And what auxiliary business operations is fire companies that own car washes, social clubs, bars. I know fire companies that own campgrounds and everything in between. Okay. So if you don't do any of those in Shippensburg, you've got a stool with three legs on that. You guys from EMS, you probably have a fund drive. You probably sell memberships. You probably get money from government. You probably get some funds from insurance reimbursements and things like that. So thinking of your model, and this is the next graphic that you have to absolutely use this when you talk to your local, your municipal officials, okay, your municipal officials. Kind of break this down and what is it, and have an honest discussion with your elected officials, because I was working with some departments. They were talking about our fund drives going down. We have 5 years of data that our fund drive is going down, okay? And those percentages change. So in this situation, to run that organization, it was about, I want to say it's like a $200,000 a year organization. 43% of that income every year came from their fund drive. And they did a good fund drive. Fundraising was 26%. They had a fire tax, okay? A fire tax brought in 21%, and 10% was from grants, their state grants and things like that. So this paints a good picture. For example, there is one fire department in Cumberland County, and it's not the department that I belong to. 95% of their budget is provided by the local government, 95%. And I want you to remember that. When local government provides an increased percentage, they're going to want to have an increased say in some things, okay? They're not going to tell you what color your truck should be, but the more municipal funding that is asked for and given to a fire or EMS organization, it changed the dynamics. Now, in this organization, I'm showing you that only 21% of their total budget comes from government money, okay? In that say, maybe they don't have a huge say in everything. Maybe the very basic, You need to provide them with a financial report every year, provide them with an operational report every year. But the more these pies change, okay, the more these pies change, you have to understand that the cooperation level between local government and their traditional hands-off fire service organization, that dynamic is going to change and has to change. So here's number 2, system failure. Okay, system failure. And what do I mean by system failure is what I kind of talked about earlier. If you've got 2 apparatus showing up during the day and everyone is over 70 years old and no one is PAC qualified, that is not the best practice in fire service, modern fire service operations. And I'm not being negative to older firefighters. Please don't put a negativity against me. People, you know, I know 50 or 60-year-old, the top 5 guys in my department are over 55 years old in responding to calls. And I'll tell you, they're going to be gone in 3 years. They're gone, moving to Florida, away. Okay. So identifying your department, the age demographics of people. So I'm hearing that people are getting volunteers, but I'm hearing, the quality's not there. You know, they're just not into it like it is anymore, and stuff like that. So what that leads to is departments responding on multiple calls, adding departments to their call for everything, just the stress of the system. So that's the second thing I hear. The number 1 thing I hear in Pennsylvania is the money. Number 2 is system failure. Number 3 is this, where there's organizational dysfunction that happens within organizations, okay? And comes in a couple of different ways. And the fastest way for a municipality to lose, if the fire department wants to lose the credibility in the municipality's eyes, is you want one of these to happen, okay? You want one of these to happen. That organizational dysfunction where somebody steals money, okay? Our inability to manage ourselves, okay? And again, you know, this does not look good. And, you know, you don't want to be asking a municipality for more money and then, you know, a year later, having somebody steal money from the fire department. This doesn't turn out well, okay? And it takes a long time for this to fix itself. It really does. So money, lack of volunteers, and organizational dysfunctions, okay? Organizational dysfunction. So what are we going to do? Well, this is my last one right here too. So this probably, you guys don't have to worry about this down in Shippensburg because this was outside of Pittsburgh. And I would say a stone's throw from this was a full-time paid fire department. And the volunteers did not have the full-time paid fire department on the first or second alarm. And this did not look good when there was a fatality, and this was all over the news, okay? That full-time career engine could have been there in 3 minutes, okay? And even though maybe the person would have lived, maybe the person would have died no matter what, it just did not look good. So what we talk about across Pennsylvania is the closest unit policy and using that closest unit policy to avoid this, because municipal officials do not understand this. They can't figure this out, okay? And you got to break it down into something very simple when you talk about box alarms and things like that. And you want to make yourself as bulletproof as possible in these situations. So when we look at the differences, okay, municipal government has certain things that they follow. Volunteer fire and EMS, you know, again, when we look at volunteer fire and EMS, we're accountable to our members. Again, we're membership driven organizations, okay? The leadership decisions, when your chief, your president, those teams, you know, those decisions affect the members. And it's usually a single focus, fire, rescue, EMS. And you elect your leaders. You elect your leaders. And some of those volunteer fire and EMS organizations, they run those associated enterprises, the social clubs and stuff like that. Now, local government, when you talk to local government, and there's some township supervisors and stuff on here, you're accountable to the citizens of the community when you're elected. You're representing those citizens. Now, some places they have those leadership decisions that they make may affect employees of that. That local government has to look at the big picture. all functions. If you have a police department, a streets department, parks department, those things. And a lot of places have a township secretary or a professional township manager that monitors and manages the day-to-day operations. And a lot of times the volunteer fire company or EMS is like 2% of the local government's concern. Okay. It's not something that is a big deal. Okay. Sometimes it should be. Okay. But there's many, many things going on. And, I hear complaints from fire departments on a regular basis. The township doesn't listen to us or anything like that. Well, sometimes, especially down around the Chester County area, they're putting all these pipelines through the residential developments and all this kind of stuff like that. They're having town hall meetings every week and everybody's complaining, and the fire department feels like they are being ignored. But it's these big picture issues that are occurring within the municipality. So there are differences in the organization. So one of the things to clarify this, and what I'm going to recommend, is defining your chain of command. Okay, how do you work your chain of command? And one of the best, and I'm starting to come down the series of best practices. Okay, here's the series of best practices. So how do you report? What does your organizational chart look like? Do you report directly to each one of the municipal officials? Do you report to a township manager? Do you report to the Shippensburg fire chief? Or is there some sort of public safety committee? Again, I'm familiar with, you guys have a committee or you have something down there, okay? But there's a lot of places that don't have this, okay? For example, some places have a full-time fire chief. West Manchester Township is an example. Waterra Township is an example where they have a full-time fire chief, okay? That is the liaison, okay? The fire departments report to the fire chief, okay? Other places, there's a mix of a township supervisor may be the liaison to the fire company and then comes to all the fire company's meetings and things like that. So clarifying this chain of command, that's very important. Okay, very important to clarify that. Make sure it's working. Now, the next best practice is there some sort of contract or agreement in writing on what you do for what you get? Okay, is there a contract outlining roles, responsibilities, problem solving, funding, and equipment replacement? Some places there's an ordinance that is developed, and that ordinance authorizes the fire department to do certain things and things like that. Okay, or is it just a handshake agreement? Okay, where, okay, you're a fire company, we're going to give you $100,000 a year, no questions asked, and it's never been a problem until it becomes a problem. And usually it becomes a problem when, and here's the case study. Here's the case study that I worked with. And so 2 people attend a seminar that I attended. It's a township manager and a fire chief. They really get along really well together. They work out well together. I mean, they're a great team. The seminar is in October. Okay, the seminar is in October. End of January, I get a call from the township manager, all upset. She was very upset. She reported to me that the fire company, the chief that she worked with very well, guess what? Lost election. Okay, the new regime came in, swept the old regime out, and then the new regime showed up at the township meeting the 3rd week in January, demanding money for a new ladder truck, demanding it. And it was a generational difference. Okay, it was a generational difference. So they had a handshake agreement. Okay, and that municipality actually provided probably $500,000 a year to the fire department, and they paid for the apparatus. Okay, and on a handshake agreement, no contract, no rules, no responsibilities. It wasn't a problem until it was a problem. Okay. And, is there some reporting requirement and things like that? Decision making, who makes decisions? Okay, clearly, who makes decisions, who's in charge? When things are not clear, okay, problems may occur, okay? And as I said, the more complexity you have, And again, I'm not, again, you have to understand here, I'm not saying there has to be like a dictator in charge of everything, but when a municipality owns the equipment, when the municipality or a group does certain things, there has to be that accountability piece. There has to be that accountability piece in answering some of these questions when we make decisions. So assessing our performance, okay? How do we assess our performance? So these are the questions that municipal officials usually ask about the fire service. And those of you that are municipal officials on here, you might want to write down some questions that you may have that when we are done with the presentation, you could ask. But a lot of times, how many volunteers respond to calls? And more importantly, and I like to tell municipal officials this, okay, is, you know, how many AirPack qualified volunteers do we have? Okay. Municipal officials sometimes want to know how much money fire departments get from donations. They want to know why you need so many trucks. Okay. They want to know what the plan is for the future. Because again, fire departments, a lot of times fire departments are still, make decisions very quickly. There's not a long-term view. Municipalities need to know if they're going to be assisting in purchasing vehicles and stuff like that. And they want to know why things cost so much. Okay, they want to know why things cost so much. So fire service organizations and how do we respond to that is kind of explaining to municipal officials how we do what we do and why we do it. Okay, why do you have 3 engines, a truck, and a heavy rescue on a first alarm? Okay, why? And that level of service, why do we need to set up the fire ground this way? Why do you think we need 3 engines and why do we need a ladder truck in this area? Because there's certain fire ground tasks that need to be accomplished. Okay, your attack line, your backup line, someone to do search and rescue, someone to do ventilation, someone to be the incident commander, the safety officer, your pump operators, your aerial operators. When you guys are running EMS, you need 2 people per crew, okay? And those 2 people have to be certified. So kind of explaining and walking through, this is why we need what we need, okay? This is why we need a pumper. And with you guys down in Shippensburg, why you need tankers? Why do you need a rural water supply operation? Because you live in a rural area, you're gonna need those type of vehicles. So once you explain what you need and how you need it, understanding how fire companies integrate with a local budget. So the example that I'm telling you right now is, if you plan to ask for more money for 2022 from the municipality, now is the time you need to start talking to them. Okay. A lot of fire companies, and again, I'm throwing that in, and EMS, please don't get me mad. Don't say anything because I'm just using the word fire company. A lot of fire companies don't do a good job planning financially, and municipalities usually plan on a calendar year, month to month financial reporting. Somewhere around July and August, you should start kind of thinking about, what's next year going to look like? What's next year going to look like? Usually there's some sort of management review of what next year is going to look like, or capital plan and stuff. Some places there's budget presentations and hearings that occur. Usually there's some sort of budget adjustments that happen in November. In December, they usually approve the next year's budget. And I know you guys are, hopefully better than that. There's fire companies that show up at the last township meeting in December and demand an extra $30,000 because they haven't been able to make their truck payments all year. That's not going to work. Okay. Like I said, if you plan to get more money or figure something out, you got to have a plan. Okay. And you got to understand how a fire company budgets. Okay. And the issue with a fire company is many do not have budgets. Okay. Many do not communicate on a regular basis. They wait till the last minute. It's not because they're bad people. It's the way we've always done it. And, they're busy running calls. They're doing fundraising and things. So that's not a knock, but one of the best practices is having a budget. You have to justify what you're asking. You have to justify, what you're asking for. And, in today's world, it's gotta be something that's, you gotta communicate early and often. Okay, early and often. That's my best recommendation when it comes to that. So planning, strategic plan, and I know the Shippensburg Fire has had a strategic plan for many years, or a couple of versions of a strategic plan, and you guys are way ahead with that. I'm working 2 projects right now, helping fire companies with these type of things, and that's asking that question is, what do you want to be in 5 years? And to be honest with you, I used to have like 15 there, and we kind of dropped that because with the rapid changes in society, where do you think you're going to be in 10 years? Where do you what is the big deal? Okay, where are we? Okay, let's look at what our staffing is and what our staffing needs to be, or what is our plan for staffing? What is our apparatus and equipment replacement, and what is our building and facilities? What does that look like? And that's a process. Your strengths, your weaknesses, your opportunities, and things like that. And what that's used for is to gain that commitment on this is the way it's going to be. Now, again, another war story that I'll tell you is it doesn't look good when your fire department buys a $1.3 million aerial scope at the time, and it's not in Central Pennsylvania, by the way. That chief that wanted that is out of office 2.5 years later, and the new regime in the fire department sells the aerial scope, okay, just to replace it with something different. That does not go well, okay, when those things happen. The municipalities will not understand that type of thing, okay? So the concept of a strategic plan is speaking with one voice, having a plan, long-term relationship building, okay? And using it to recognize the value that you provide that community. And you do provide a huge value, okay? You do provide a huge value. And this is a number, this is the number that I use, and it's from the it's called, it's one of the volunteer organizations across the United States. They estimate what's called the value of volunteer time. Because what we do as volunteers is not free, okay? And that bugs me whenever somebody says, well, it's all free, No, because that's costing you time away from your family, your social life, things that you would else be doing, because it is a tremendous amount of personal time, not to get your training these days, but to maintain the apparatus, to go to training, to go on calls and things like that. And you can run the numbers on this and calculate this number out of how many, what's the value of a volunteer, okay, and how much you have saved the municipality by volunteering. And that's where we are seeing in that map that I showed you, we are seeing municipalities across Pennsylvania where people are not willing to volunteer anymore. They're so busy, and the municipality has to turn to a combination system just to get the trucks out the door. And again, I tell the story all the time. I know of $4 million firehouses in the Philadelphia suburbs that the municipality built these stations and bought all the apparatus, and they still can't get out the door. They still can't because they have not addressed the staffing issues. They have not addressed the staffing issues. So best practice on reporting. So once you do this, municipalities and fire service organizations should come to some sort of agreement on how do we communicate what we're doing, okay? Do we communicate on a regular basis? Is there a monthly operational report that goes to each one of the municipalities? So just some examples here. You don't have to do every one of these. And this should not be a 20-page report either. I'm talking about 1 or 2 pages, maybe 2 pages front and back. Municipal officials are very busy. They don't have time to read 30 pages. So again, overview of significant operations. You have a bad crash on the interstate, do a couple sentences about that. You have a structure fire, a couple sentences about that. Talk about the good things, talk about some of the challenges that you might have had. Some of your response times. What's our average response time? Now, the NFPA response thing, for structure fires in a rural suburban area, having 10 firefighters on the scene in 10 minutes. Some people follow that, some people don't. And again, this is where it may be a little controversial for you, or it may be controversial for other fire departments, but I've found transparency is the most important when it comes to staffing. If you have a list of calls that, if you were unable to respond to calls due to a lack of volunteers, you need to be upfront with the municipality and tell them, okay? What I mean by that is, again, this is one of the same municipalities I'm working with. They're getting rumors that the fire department is unable to respond at all. They have 3 fire companies that they provide funding for. I think the budget's like 500 grand. You divide that by 3. You have one fire company that's doing a good job. The other fire company can't get out the door, and the other one gets out half the time. But none of the chiefs are willing to come to the township and admit that there's an issue. And what's happening is the township is losing confidence in the ability of the chiefs to lead these organizations. And this is not going to end well, okay? What is your volunteer roster? What does it look like over time, okay? And those basic financial monitors. This is just, again, basic honesty and openness and stuff like this. And you guys probably have something similar to this. But again, communication often and early is very important. And also have an annual report. And I'm sure you guys might have this or not. Here, this is something that you could communicate like a donor. And I think you guys in Shippensburg did like a capital campaign for your building, and these are the type of things that you take to donors. And I've done this a couple of times over the years in projects that I've worked on, and that's an annual report that people do. Then you can communicate that report to your members, to elected officials, the members of the public, things like that. Again, and it takes time. Again, it takes time, but it does show that you are, you're communicating and you're doing the right thing. So I'm also big on community engagement type stuff and best practice. So municipal officials in general like it when the fire companies are out working with the community. If you have your own little club and the bay doors are closed and you're doing your own thing, that might not be a best practice. Running some of these events, attending neighborhood events, your open houses, holiday events. And of course, we'll be getting back to these things here once we clear all the stuff that we're doing in. An economic development meeting. When I was a chief officer at Hampton, the township did every year a business breakfast with every business leader in the whole community. And it was up at the golf course, and then I would go up in the fire. You go up, and every township department kind of speaks for 5 minutes. And to be honest with you, they talked about snow plowing, they talked about golfing, but I'm telling you, when the fire service got to talk, we had the most questions because people were interested in learning about what we do. And this was complete business people and people that run those type of things. And that's very valuable, that integration with the community, because those are the people, by the way, that if we have to raise taxes, okay, to fund fire service, those are the people that need to stand up for you and help you. Just like I'm telling you, the Citizens Fire Academy, that I'm a huge fan of that, because I've got a roster of 60 people who attended over a 10-year period, that if I need them for help in advocating for me for more money, they can do it because they believe in the fire service. They believe and they can help. So I'm coming down to the end here, pretty close or something like that. I've been talking quite a bit here with 2 dogs running behind me. I cannot stress to you and by the way, I want you to start thinking about questions you want to ask, because that's the best part of these seminars, actually, which I miss the most. No one said a relationship would be easy, okay? And this is what it's all about. Building long-term relationships between local government and the emergency services organizations in Shippensburg. Now, I know there's some long-term people there, okay? but we always have to talk about succession planning and what the next generation and who the next generation is. Okay. I cannot stress to you the importance of relationships. Okay. So here it is. Here's long-term success. Here is the success that I think is very important. Ongoing communications is very important. Okay. Ongoing communication by doing verbal reports, written reports, inviting people to the station. Okay. Going to meetings. That leads to transparency. Okay. That communication leads to transparency. And what I mean by transparency is the fire and EMS honestly share their financial situations and if they have staffing situations. Okay. Transparency. Transparency leads to trust. Okay. And it all comes down to that trust. And once there's trust, there are long-term stable relationships between the emergency services organizations and the local governments. Okay, again, ongoing communications, communicate frequently, being transparent, that builds the trust. Which leads to long-term sustained relationships. Okay. So again, as we wrap up this piece, when we talk about expectations, what I have learned in the work that I've done across Pennsylvania and my experience as a leader in a fire department and things like that is, so what are fire and EMS organizations? What is their expectations of local government? Okay. Well, they want the fire and EMS organizations to, the local government to understand and acknowledge the commitment required to be a volunteer. Okay. Provide ongoing thanks and moral support and provide adequate funding to keep the organization going. Okay. Local government's expectations. Okay. Local government's expectations are respond to calls. Okay. Get there quick with trained members and minimal complaints from the citizens. Okay. Because citizens are complaining about snow plows and trash collection and things like that. Keep your internal conflict minimal. Okay. Don't get in the newspaper for the wrong reasons. Okay. And also provide adequate notice for funding requests. Because in reality, providing fire and EMS is a partnership between the fire and EMS organization and the government. Okay. Local government in Pennsylvania. Both must cooperate to ensure adequate levels of service. Okay. Cooperation requires an ongoing effort. Okay. Cooperation requires an ongoing effort. So with that, I'm going to kind of switch gears here and let me stop sharing my screen. So I'm going to open it up for questions right now. And the first thing I'm going to do, which there's 23 people that we have on right now, and I'm hoping that all of you are still watching because when I do my Hack Fire Science courses, half the students are sleeping by now. So my first question I'm going to ask one of you, and it cannot be Randy answering this. And maybe this would be one of the other chiefs of the department would be, what is the greatest concern about the future of your organization? Okay, this is from the fire department end. Ask, what is your greatest concern?
Jerry, it's Clyde, Chief 52. I think my greatest concern, and I think it's several of our officers' concern, is one of the things we talked about is the planning after we step out. Who's going to take over where we leave, and what will that look like?
Absolutely, and that succession planning is extremely important. Does one of the other fire officers want to step up and say, what is one of your greatest concern? All right. Anyone from the municipal end, any municipal official would like to step forward and identify one of your greatest concerns that you have for the future of your fire and EMS organization.
Hi, it's Kathy Coy. My biggest concern or going forward would be basically is budgeting, how we can continue to support the fire departments with what they need and still stay within our own decreasing budgets.
Sounds good. Kathy, and could you please tell me where you're from and what is your position, please?
Sorry, I'm mayor in Shippensburg, in the borough of Shippensburg.
Absolutely, and that is a hugely important position. I work with the mayor in Ephrata on a regular basis, and he's a fire police guy also, and that is you're correct. Being able to budget correctly for fire and EMS organizations. Anyone else from the municipal end that has a concern about the greatest concern you have for your fire and EMS organizations in the future?
Yes, Steve O'Donnell, Southampton Township, Cumberland County.
Yes,
My biggest concern would be, I think that the 3 stations combined, including EMS, do way too much fundraising. And I think we have to, as municipal leaders, get to a place where we can at least fund the basic service. I think we're at a point in the community where we're asking our volunteers to just work entirely too much, 2 bingos a week, community fairs, block parties, so on and so forth. So that's one of my things is, and a big push that I hope that me and my other supervisors are all on the same page to try to fund them to the proper level that they need to be. And as soon as possible that we can do that.
And Steve, that is very good. And you know, that pie chart that I showed, and getting that pie chart right and what that pie chart should look like. And you said some important words there, Steve, and what the fire departments need, okay, and what that is. And the fire departments and EMS, you know, have to, what is that number? What does that number look like? Is it $500,000 a year to run the Shippensburg Fire Department, all 3 plus EMS? Or is it $750 a year? Okay, currently, just to let you know now, is maybe currently it's this, okay, to continue the operations of the stations, to continue the volunteer system as it is right now, to continue to replace the exact same amount of apparatus and equipment. But in 5 years, if our demographics hasn't changed and the Shippensburg system has to change to something different, what does that look like? And as municipal officials, you want to be absolutely understanding and participating in that. That's a concern, because I can tell you that fundraising is a huge burden, and it gets a lot of time, and you know, it's important that you have recognized that. Others that would like to speak, and this could be anybody from fire or EMS.
Hey, Jerome.
Yes.
Kevin Plaster, Borough Manager of Shippensburg.
Yes.
I have 2 comments, along with Mayor Coy. On behalf of Borough Council, budgeting is a big problem for us. Our tax base is almost all maxed out, so we don't know where else to turn to. I have been here all my life, and we used to have quality and a lot of volunteer fire police. That has now dropped off to maybe a handful. And I'm just concerned that the volunteers are going to go away over time as well.
That's a huge concern. And, you know, the one thing that you know, the cooperation that you have now and kind of figuring out how to take it to the next level is going to be, you know, that's going to be the key piece in how do you ensure that the fire services are funded with exactly that, the tax-based challenges, okay, and you know, that it's equitable between the different municipalities and what the different municipalities fund and how that works. Now, there are some examples in other places in Pennsylvania where they've developed an emergency services commission through an intergovernmental agreement to kind of work on these type of issues. But the only way you're going to get through it is collaborating and working together, because I spoke to the Mayor's Association about 2 years ago up in State College. They had their annual conference. And a lot of the mayors from the boroughs are challenged with exactly what you said, Kevin, is, your tax base is stagnant, no room for growth. The townships are growing somewhat, and sometimes there's unequal funding of emergency services and things like that. But both the township and the boroughs need the same level of engine response, EMS response, ladder truck services. So absolutely that you have recognized that, and that there is challenges. Okay, absolute challenges. But I can guarantee you guys this, and I should have said this a little bit earlier: if you do nothing, it's going to be worse in 5 years. Okay, it's going to be worse. So you should be doing something else. Now, again, I know you guys have done a lot compared to other areas of Pennsylvania. You guys are very advanced, but your goal should be, what are we going to do to take this to the next level to deal with that? Other questions from either fire or EMS in municipalities?
Jerry, Sean Corwell from Green Township. One of the issues I believe is we're facing is not only volunteer manpower, but career. Getting people, we'll just use EMS as an example. A lot of the EMS folks, there's not so many EMTs or paramedics out there to do that job anymore. And they seem to be bouncing around or having 2 or 3 jobs at different departments. So the manpower pool, I don't believe, is out there right now for those types of jobs.
I will agree with you. I will very much agree with you. And we are very challenged. This goes beyond just central Pennsylvania, and even a municipal fire department. I was talking to a guy from a very large municipal fire department in Western Pennsylvania. The city of Pittsburgh had, in 2008, they had 1,500 people taking their tests. In 2008, 1,500 people. Last year, they had 500 people take their test. And that's just a big example of it. But now this is a big struggle. And how, it's not a secret that organizations, if they pay a little bit more, people are jumping ship. And what are we going to do as a look at a regional model that may get some of your staff that will stay and be loyal? And what will that be? Now, what is that? And what is the Pennsylvania model compared to other models that you can ensure service to the citizens? So absolutely, you are absolutely correct with that. So other questions or other ideas, or what has been on your mind throughout all this? Keep going. I know somebody's thinking about something.
Steve O'Donnell, Southampton, Cumberland. I'll make a comment. I think from your presentation that the 3 fire departments are on target as far as the financials, the monthly reports. I think we have good communication. Southampton Franklin, I know, has a leader that speaks to them. Southampton Cumberland has a leader that speaks to us monthly. The borough has one. I'm sure Shippensburg Township has the same. I don't know if anybody's on from Shippensburg Township, but I think all the bullet points you hit, I think we are doing. I just think the biggest concern is, it goes back to the fundraising. If we can get that eliminated, I think the longevity of the volunteer can last for a while. But I think as what the 3 stations are doing and EMS, they're doing what you laid out. I really do.
And that's good to hear. And I kind of figured that. And again, when you're looking at the future and when you're looking at now is the time to start planning to figure out how to accomplish that goal. And accomplishing that goal of, eliminating fundraising or getting it to a percentage of reasonableness, okay, maybe do 3 fundraisers a year, that are still community engaged. What I talk to people about is community engagement projects, okay, that you're still out in the community doing things, okay, that bring in some money, but are not, that you're not sweating it, that you got to run 12 fundraisers in 6 months to pay the mortgage and pay the truck payments and those type of things. So, does that look like, Steve, a funding source for the big equipment where, for example, there's a municipal based funding source that purchases all the equipment, the vehicles, and then the fundraising or the day-to-day operations is handled by the independent nonprofits, or how does that look? What does that look like? Because those are, depending on, how systems are done and how people want to set things up, the one place that I'm working with, they have a fund, they fund the apparatus through, they have this apparatus replacement plan every X amount of years, and, it's like a sinking fund and things like that. So, and once that, because I know, again, there's some organizations that have, 2 loans out and 3 loans out on this and that, and they're barely making their payments because of the decrease in fundraising. So it is definitely a goal to start. If that is the goal and that's what you've all agreed to, start working toward that and figuring out what that is. What's that number? That's number one. And again, that succession planning is truly the key. Finding out who the next generation, getting that next generation involved in the leadership of the organization. That's what I'm not talking about, this specific thing on, 14 and 15-year-olds getting involved, but I'm talking about the organizational leadership that's going to take this to the next level. Other comments and questions?
Jerome, this is Mayor Coy again, and just to piggyback off of what Stevie was saying, we do have a joint municipality meeting monthly, and I can certainly put that on our agenda to see if we can maybe start coming up with some ideas. That has all of the surrounding municipalities, the borough, the fire department, the police chief, the fire chief, the school district. So maybe we can just start putting that on as an agenda item to see if there's any leadway and where we could go or do things together.
Oh, that's the perfect thing. That is one of the things that I think is a really, really good idea. And I'm going to show you something. Just give me one little bit, because, and I'm not saying you start with small baby steps on how you put things together and how you do things. But let me get to this thing real quick here. Maybe I won't get to it or not, but I wanted to show you guys something, how other areas have set something up. And that is like maybe out of that meeting, Mayor, is that something breaks off and becomes a fire and emergency services working group or something like that, with the goals in mind to come up with a sustainable plan to fund X, Y, and Z and things like that. So that definitely is a great forum. Okay, it's definitely a great forum to do that. Other questions that somebody might have? Other questions? Keep talking. You guys are doing good. Oh, I can't seem to find what I was looking for to show you guys, but that forum that you have, Mayor, I think is one of the best ways to kick it off, to get people to talking, and again, I would wait, it's one of those things where, it has to be addressed, and it has to, it should be addressed sooner rather than later, because it's going to continue. Okay, there's these problems will not go away. They will not go away if you take a look here. They will not go away if you wish them to go away. Yeah, I'm still looking for my chart here. Just give me one little minute here and I'll kind of show you. I think you guys would be interested in at least thinking about that. Intergovernmental agreement, hold on here. Maybe I will, I should have been smarter and pulled it out before I here we go. And this is very similar to what you have, is kind of talking about how will these organizations work well together, and how will they, what's their thoughts in the future, and that kind of stuff. Let's take a look here. Yeah. Well, maybe it's not going to work. Well, sorry about that, guys. I thought I'd have this. With me here, but it appears I'm looking at the wrong thing. Hold on. I got so many PowerPoints here. It's unbelievable. But these organizations came together. It was 2 townships and a borough, and they decided to come together and develop a emergency services commission. And it's Lidditz, Warwick Township, and Elizabeth Township in Lancaster County. And they have a really good system that deals with collaboration, funding, working together. They have an intergovernmental agreement together. They've put together an apparatus replacement plan. They've put together a bunch of different things. And obviously that system and how that works is it works for them. That might not be the best thing for Shippensburg, but it gives you an idea, and you may want to work with that. So I got it. You guys got to get your money's worth from me. So here it is. So hopefully you guys can see this right here. You guys see that?
Mm-hmm.
So this is one of the models that I show all over Pennsylvania, and this is the system that they set up maybe 10 or 12 years ago. That there's 4 volunteer fire companies. There's 51 square miles, 33,000 residents. There's their call volume, and they have 3 EMS organizations and things like that. And it's an intergovernmental working group. Okay, it's an intergovernmental working group. And there's members from all the fire companies, leadership from the fire companies, and there's leadership from the ambulance services. But they do have, they do fund a full-time administrator that they just turned into a commissioner position, which in that area of Pennsylvania is kind of like the chief executive. The volunteer fire chiefs still respond day to day and that kind of thing.
Yeah.
That's something that works for them. So absolutely.
And down the phone to
So we got,
I'm mute. I'm still muted.
yeah, hold on a second there.
Right, boy, mute your mic.
All right, there we go. Any questions? I'm about to end the seminar. Randy, do you want to jump on and do the final goodbye to everybody?
Yeah. Thank you, Jerry, for putting this on, and thank you for what the Institute does for Pennsylvania. You're really the only spokesman we have out there right now, your organization, that's fighting for us every day. And, and it's very much appreciated. And you've done a lot for that organization the last several years, and we really do sincerely appreciate what you've done. The intent tonight was to do two things. One was to engage local government, what we have, a little bit what Chief Tenner brought up is development of our future officers, get them engaged with local government, get to understand local government, how it works. 15 years ago, we developed our first master fire plan. We identified three things as our major problem was manpower, management, and money. Today, that's still the three things: manpower, management, and money. I think in the forefront, what we've discussed, what we're working on in 2021 is our management, our leadership skills of our younger people. We have a lot of concern there. Not that these guys they're doing anything wrong, but we're looking at the longevity of what people stay, 5 to 7 years. So we're looking at that, how we can correct that, how we can have people fill these roles, maybe consolidate roles and positions that we get the best service for the community. And we have come a long way with our local government from we started 15 years ago, and the relationships, the funding model that we're using, the MOU we have for funding now. I think we've done an awful lot, a lot of meetings, a lot of work from a lot of people. And I appreciate everybody that got on board tonight. And we had a lot of other things going on tonight, but we'll definitely share this with the rest of the group as well. So thanks again, Jerry, and everyone that participated this evening.
All right, very good. Thank you.